Okay, this is a UNS, and I've just put a couple of lines on it. I've marked the high, low, close of a really high volume bars over here, and probably some more closer to the action as well, just as potential resistance, areas of resistance. Just got a simple Wyckoff channel here connecting the two lows and the intervening high. Put a center line on it, and that's given us a bit of a channel to watch. As we can see, when it tries to make any progress through the top of that channel, it's been rejected, so we're up around that area again at the moment. So we'll just have a look. We really haven't got a proper high or low in place, so they've sort of tried to form one here, but just zoom in on there, and I've just marked off the bottom of this bar here as support. Hopefully it never gets there again, but it's there anyway. And the high that corresponds with this high volume bar down here roughly. So I've had high volume down, closing on the high, so there must have been buying in this bar, and probably even in the previous bar, for it to close high as it's tried to push through. So I've had demand overcoming supply. Next bar was weak as it up thrust, then it's pushed through that supply. Still very high supply, tests. Next bar is up, so that the test is successful, but still the volume is excessive. So it sits there for a bit. Again, still the volume excessive. Then the volume, as it drops down, the volume drops off. So we test. The next bar goes up and pushes through the old highs. Pushes through again, so it's absorbing supply as it goes up, which is good. So it looks like there's been a push to go up there. We haven't really had any light volume down bars testing that supply, so I suspect they may bring that back to test again within this area if they're bullish. The last bar is on the weekly chart is starting to look a bit weak now because the spread's narrowed a bit. We've still got a couple of days to go, and it's Wednesday and you've got 2 days left, so even if you double that volume, you're going to end up with a no demand. So you want the volume to kick in a bit and to close higher. But I think it really needs to come back and start testing. There's been pushing, but we haven't really had too many tests on there. We had one there, which was alright, and one there, but the volume was still pretty high on those. So still plenty of supply here within this band here that we want to see tested, and see if we can get some really light volume down bars, narrow spread down bars to test. I'll just quickly go over to the daily chart. There's our lines there. I've just put on a little channel. What I've done here, I've just connected this low here and that low, connected the intervening high, and then I've just taken that parallel and connected it to this low here, and it's the bottom of this, and that's exactly the same distance from the center, both these lines. That gives this channel here that it's in. It's a little uptrending channel we've got there, some validity. So we'll zero in on there, just the last few bars. So here's supply up, they test. That's a nice low volume test. Test confirmed. So that was a buy. They test again. You see how when it goes down, the volume's getting lighter and lighter. And then that's given us a spring, so that's where we put our channel from on there. So it's sprung, and it's sprung over these resistance lines here, over these highs. It's gapped up. That was a very weak bar, plenty of supply closing low, so a lot of selling there, a lot of trapped holders to the left here that it's catching. Next bar tries to go up and a bit of no demand, but then they push through on a bit more volume, but then it comes right off. Today's bar is a testing back into this bar, so that's okay. But I think you're at the top of the channel now, so you're vulnerable to some profit taking now, and I think there's still plenty of areas. I think your safer entries would be down if we saw any strong bars like this really light volume testing on this bottom trend line here, right where it is at the moment. You're sort of a bit close to some resistance, and that high there is giving us a little bit of a double top there. Is this to this high over here. And what it's done is it's pushed up, but see the volume's not that great, so it's not going to get through there. It needs a bit more juice to get through there, I think. So it's tested. I probably wouldn't take an entry there, even though that's a nice looking test, because we're so close to the top of the channel, so it's not really the best place to take an entry. But the only way I'd take an entry there, if it could break through that old high and then come back and test on top of that, then what you could do is just copy that channel one over. Oop. Copy arrow. And that's what I'd be. If I could break up above that high, then test, then I'd be targeting the top of that channel, would be the next thing I'm looking at. But I would have to see that break, that old high there. I'd like to see that break and retest on light volume before I would be interested in that. But certainly any strong bars appearing now on this bottom trend line here would definitely be worth watching, and that would correspond then with some of these areas of supply that it's gapped over. So you do have a gap there, and I suspect that may fill, because you had one high volume day, but then it's all been light volume, so it's hardly a breakaway gap, is it? But it hasn't filled yet, but that's what I'd be watching at this trend line here, possibly around the 72, 70, 73 cent area. If we get some light volume testing there, it'd be real good. Otherwise, wait for it to break that high and test, and then you can target the top of the channel there, this other one. So anyway, that's UNS. This is BKP, and it looks like I've charted this recently. So, and what I've done there, looks like I put a pitchfork from this high here, low high. It's given us a pitchfork that's framed the price quite well, and I've extended this top tine here just to see where it touches, and we get a touch on there, and the bottom tine we get a touch on this pivot here. So I'd call that a valid pitchfork. It's a downtrending pitchfork, so you're in a downtrend and you really want to see a proper high low. You see how it works. You can see what's happened. You've got really high volume up, but the bars close low, so it's full of professional selling. And it's professional selling because there's no one else to sell to. There's no trapped holders over here that are wanting to get out. It's purely professional selling into some. There's been some announcement. That's what's knocked it back. Then they've brought it back up into that area. High volume trying to penetrate that area, but close low, so it must be full of selling if it's closed low. And again, you see where these volume spikes happen, they spike up and they close low, so they've been selling it on the way down. There was a bit of a shakeout there, which knocked it up. This time it was a down bar. Smart money selling up bars, but buy on down bars. But there wasn't really enough there to keep it going, and it's just rolled over, and we've got very low volume now. So very little professional interest at the moment in the stock. We can probably look at the last few bits of action, but really there's not a lot of volume to speak of. So not a lot of selling pressure on this bar here. Next bar closes a bit more volume and up, so that's a you're on the median line, so it's so really light volume down, so a test. And that is nothing in the recent past to test, but it's low selling, and that's confirmed by the next bar going up and slightly more selling. So that's normally in an uptrend would be a nice buy signal. Next bar is a weak because it's an up thrust, then they test, and the next bar is up thrust. Again we up thrust, so these are quite weak actually, because they look, they're closing low. So you might be able to, you might make it to the 1.8 if you're lucky, but I think that's going to come back down to keep following the median line for the time being. And really what we're wanting to see, or something like this, would have given us a bit of hope, as it's tested on top of there, but it's never really got past out of this pitchfork. So what we want a higher low, and we want to get out of this, we want to move out of this downtrending pitchfork, this downtrending channel. So yeah, that's still acting quite weak. That's BKP. This is NUF, New Farm Limited. This one I haven't charted before, so we can have a look there. We can probably start off with just putting that trend line there. That's worked for us. Do an intervening low there, and then I'll put a center line on it, which just roughly. And we're starting to move sideways out of this shadow there, so that's actually looks like it might be possibly making a basing pattern there. So that's a positive. I think this is the weekly chart, by the way. Let's have a look. We've got this high volume down, and that's stopped this trend. So there's some stopping volume coming in, and that stopped the sharp move down. And that typically happens because we must have had some buying in there. Put the close high. I'll just mark off the low of that bar. You can see that's come in as support. See how it's moved up, and they've come down as it's tried to push through there again. Volume really high, but it springs up. Come back test, not a very good test, but away she goes. Breaks that high, comes back, tests on low volume, next bar up. So there was a little buy signal there. But as it starts to move up, we start getting, it starts to roll a little bit. So they're not ready to take it higher yet. That's probably because they want to accumulate at lower prices. So that's why we like to see a bit of an uptrend start first before we. Anyway, it's come to the edge here and started moving sideways, and we've got this last lot of uptrend. Now we've got this big shakeout bar here, and look, the volume's really low compared to what it was over here and even here at these last lows. So not anywhere near as much selling pressure at these lows. You can see as it goes up here, the volume dries right off, and that's why it's rolled back down like it has. But we've had a shakeout on high volume. See the selling pressure, but nowhere near the selling pressure. So there must have been some buying on there, but also not a lot of selling pressure, and it's moved up from there. We can probably mark the high of that bar just to speculate. It's broken up. I've tagged it. It's moving up, but yeah, it's not. It's still moving sideways, I think. So you got your resistance at the 540. So we really want it on the weekly chart. Want to see that taken out and retested, so it can start some form of get some higher low in place and get some form of uptrend happening. So we can draw an uptrend. We can't really draw an uptrend line at the moment. We had a speculative one here, but that's broken there. So I think they're just accumulating in the range of this bar here, and the longer they do that, if that's the bottom, is that the absolute bottom? I mean, you can go down another bit of a leg before it hits the lower lows, but and where's that? The 226. Hopefully it doesn't get there. But you've got another bit of a channel here. There we go. If I do the intervening low, and if I tag that on the end, no, that doesn't quite work, but it probably can if I intervening low. So it's actually, even though you've started this little up move, it's still not a lot of volume as it's going up. Pushed up in higher volume, come back and tested up. Yeah, but at the moment it's getting some resistance now where this at the top of this trend channel we've got here, and there is a channel there. So I think it's moving slowly. I think if we see some really light volume on top of here, it might be good, but really we want to get out of these trend line. We're moving sideways out of this bigger one. We probably want to move sideways out of this minor downtrend here. And we've got a speculative. Might just go to the daily there and just have a look what we've got. You can speculate on this uptrend here. So you have really high volume down compared to the other bars. As it moves up, the volume dries up and they're up thrust, so they're not interested in high price there. They come back test, see now the volume's really low. That shifts, that's confirmed by the next bar up, so that was a buy signal. Now you would have been you put your stop under there, and away she goes. But there's a lot of buying in this bar here, definitely. It's just you're coming up to the top of that channel there, and now that you're getting high volume coming in, but the closes are compressing and it's starting to roll a bit. So I would suggest that it would come back to at least. Let's have a look. And I'll get rid of some of these lines. High volume up. It's nothing really impressive, but closing off. But they test it. Here, gaps up. Weak bar. They push through. Volume increases, but we don't make a lot of headway, and it closes off the low, and the next bar closes off. So a little bit of weakness coming in at the top of that channel, and you don't really want to be buying at the top of a downtrend channel because that's typically where you would be looking for weak bars to pop up to shorter stock. So you've also got your previous but still it's made a series of lower high lows. So if I connect those, if I connect those two lows there, oh, come on, put it on the intervening high. I mean, even if we speculate on an uptrend channel, if I copy that down, no, not quite, but I think that's you're pretty close to even to the uptrend channel. You're close to the top of the uptrend channel, so you're not really in the right spot there to be taking a long entry. I'd be looking for what it looks like when it gets when it pulls back, probably even to the. Let's have a look what we got here. The next serious resistance we can have a look at anyway would be the low of that bar there, high volume, which is $5.02. You get the 449. That's a bit of a test there. You're just pretty close to that channel. I'd be looking for my entries probably along this bottom channel here at the very least. I don't think I'd want to be, but if it did want to make a run up, then your first target resistance would be $5, and then you've got your 530, 540 above that. But it's just really vulnerable to profit taking where it is at the moment, especially on this bigger trend channel here, and then even if we speculate that we're in an uptrend here, it's still we're really close to that top channel, so it's due to pull back. So we'll just have to have a look. I'd be watching this bottom line here for your safer long-term entries. But anyway, that's enough said for NUF. Okay, this is PEK, Peak Resources, and it looks like I've charted this one before. And I've got lines everywhere. So I might just get rid of them all because we'll start again. So we've got, I'll mark the low of that really high, that's the highest volume bar on the map there, looks like, for a while. We've got a bit of a gap there too, so 22.5. But you've got the low of that bar. I'll mark the high of that bar. So it's tried to support on there as it's shaken out, but it hasn't been able to hold it. And it's dropped to the bottom of the low of this bar. I'll mark off the high of our next highest volume bar, which is right there at the 39.5 cents. And that's close enough to the close of a really high volume bar at 40 cents. So it's dropped down. Look, you're making higher lows and lower highs and lower lows, aren't we? And you can see, look what happens with your really high volume up bar up thrust catches. So high volume, it's relatively high volume because you really got it's only 3 million traded, so there's really not a lot of professional activity. High volume alerts us to the activity of the professional money. What we can see here is there's not a lot of professional activity at all, and that's why it's going down, because unless you got the professional money buying it up, it's just not going to go anywhere. We could probably put a trend channel there. Well, that's a good median line, isn't it? That's worked. If I connect those two highs, what else can we do? Maybe we can connect those and see. Put a line through the middle. That's worked for us as well. So it's broken through the middle, come back and retest it, and we'll put some weak bars in high volume up. It breaks below that, confirming there's full of selling. Next bar tries to get up there, but on no demand. Lowest volume in 3 bars, and up bar, no demand. Next bar tests. So that's okay, but it's not really testing anything. See our high volume bar is back there. Oh no, we've got a bit of volume. There is buying, a bit of buying in the bottom here, but you know, there's not a lot, is there, if you compare to you really want to be seeing those down here. And you see how it works. High volume, up bar, closing middle, so full of professional selling. And then they hold it up to complete distribution, and then it rolls. That's why you got to be careful. I mean, if there's enough demand, they'll support the price, but as soon as the demand peters out, and everything goes on sale. But we can probably even speculate on, there's a bit of a channel. No, that doesn't help us. There's a bit of a median line there for us anyway to watch. So if it were to break further down, then we'd be looking at that area. You see where you get when we get our high volume kick in, they're up bars. See, it tries to go up, smashes down, bearish engulfing candle, and drops down, and that's really weak. It's just been acting really weak. High volume up, quite narrow. You know, closes off the low. Next bar down, once it takes out the low of your really high volume bar, then you're looking for shorts. Not short PEK. It's only 55% stock, but. And if this was the 3-minute chart on BHP, you have that high volume up, you wait for it to break, then when it comes up and tries to upthrust there on no demand, you go, you know, which is what it's done there. Basically, it's not really an upthrust, but it's tried to go up and then crash down. I mean, you're looking to short it. Down it goes, volume kicks in, that moves it sideways, a little bit of stopping volume. And if I just mark off that low there, the high of that bar where it started, so it's gapped up above there, and you don't like them. I don't like them when they gap like that. They gap, have narrow spread and high volume, closing low, that's really weak. Then followed up with a no demand, that's really weak. That's potentially strong, but not in a downtrend. You're not. It just tells you there's no real activity there, I think. I think I'd put more weight on these 2 bars here, being weak, 2 weak bars, and you know, almost like another short setup. And yeah, that's not really. I mean, it's acting really weak at the moment. There's nothing. And I would want it to reclaim, I think, at least the close or the high of this really high volume bar here, and then start making some sort of uptrend, get out of this downtrend, and start making some sort of uptrend to boast of, because it's started moving up a bit, but it's really not enough there for me to be wanting to be in there. And you've got a lot of background weakness, which is these really high volume up bars. You don't really have a lot of background strength. You've got a tad of strength come in there. But in a downtrend, that can just move you sideways a bit before it continues down. So unfortunately, it's in a downtrend until it's in an uptrend. And we'll just have to watch how that goes. Another line to watch would be if I connect those 2 highs there. Look, you're right on top of that at the moment. Connect that and get rid of everything else. All I do is connect for the shorter term, connect those 2, intervening low, put it in the middle, and you've got weak bars appearing at the top of your channel. 2 weak bars, high volume upthrust, and followed up by no demand, and that's quite weak. And you don't want to be long right there. I wouldn't want to be long right there, because that's yeah, support. I would be looking at the low of that bar. I think it possibly may come back to there. Look, there's very low selling pressure in this area here, but I mean that upthrust bar is as weak as these bars are strong. Whatever strength is there is pretty much nullified by there. It looks like they bought there and sold there. That's what it looks like. And they've tested there, so possibly they may upthrust again, give you another one of these to sell it down. I don't know, but we just have to watch till it gets some sort of uptrend happening. But yeah, no, I wouldn't want to be long at the moment that stock until I saw some definite uptrend happening. But anyway, that's PEK. And this is RRL, Regis Resources. It looks like it's had a bit of a good run up, isn't it? What can we do with that? I can probably connect these two lows probably. Look, this is the weekly chart. That's a simple Wyckoff channel. Maybe I can do better than that. I'm just trying to catch something that frames the price. Well, I probably can just connect that pivot low, that pivot high. That doesn't really help me. Or I can connect this high. No, it's moved a bit parabolic for me to get a channel on, so I would probably have to use this high low here, that low. Put the intervening high on, and then put a center line on it. And that is that trend is weakening a little bit, which I mean it's run pretty hard, isn't it? But it's starting to weaken now. So I'll just add another line there for us to have a look at. But anyway, let's have a look. You can see where a really high volume comes in and then it's just shot off. You get this really high volume bar here turn up. So I'll mark the high of that bar. They test it, breaks, and then come back and they test the low of this bar, and then you can see how the volume drives right up. Well, it doesn't. It's low compared to that bar there. Low, 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 up, but they push further into that bar. Close high, test on low volume, and then break out. Then they test again. Test the weekly. So it's been breaking out, making new highs. I'll just mark off the highs as they bring it back up. And coming to the end, we get high volume. We get spread and arrows, and that bar crashes down on high volume. Next bar is weak. Next bar test. Next bar tries to go up and no demand, and we start getting some upthrusting. Really high volume upthrusting. That's a bit of a it's a down bar, so a little bit of testing, but more. They try to upthrust the close. Next bar, high volume again. They test fails, and I'll take out that low there. Smash it down high volume, closing up the low, so some buying coming in again as it comes back into this area, and we've got a bit of a area where they've reaccumulated there before. High volume comes in, it gives it a spring. This bar though is narrowing the spread, but we've got a couple of weeks to go. We've got a couple of days to go. So we've got the high. If this is genuine buying, in that bar there, then I would expect some low volume testing within this area here. And before then, I'm not really. And the thing that worries me is these highs now are moving away from this channel. So really high volume. If that's bullish, then we want to see that tested and come back down and test. So, and we want this week's not looking crash hot so far. It's up bar. We want to see where this closes, but your spread is starting to narrow now. And yeah, we really want to see what it does when it comes back into test, and they'll bring it back and test into here at least, and possibly even to the low of that bar as well. So that's what I want to see. It's starting to get toppy now up here. See, moving sideways, and there's no one here to trap. There's no trap holders over here. This is fresh new ground. And we're getting some really high volume bars happening up here. And look, see how they're nice and non-volatile. And then as it gets up into this area, it's getting some really wide movements. And price gapping, moving down really far and up. And I want to see some a narrow spread down bar within the range of this bar here, followed by the next bar closing up on a bit more volume. So at the moment it looks like there's a bit of supply. There's a lot of supply now happening around this top, and some very weak bars appearing at the top here. High volume that's taken out, trying to get back up there on less volume. But let's just see how this week closes. But I expect that they'll come back at least into this area, into this green zone here, and retest, unless they're distributing, in which case it could go further down again. But yeah, no, let's have a look at the daily and see what's happened lately. High volume down, creates a spring, goes up on no demand, that knocks it back, and test, and move it up, gap it, gapping it through these areas of resistance, catch a supply, there was a nice little test there on top, low volume, next bar closing up for more volume, so that was it, actually quite nice there. Closing off the high, next bar goes up on less volume, volume increases then, and it closes off the high, down. I made a lower low. I'd be looking for, again I'd be looking for some bullish response at this bottom line here, and just see what it does. I'll bring it back there. Whether I bring it there or it moves sideways over there, and then that's when we want to have a look at where we possibly might enter. But these, you got some really weak up bars here. Look, all high volume up bars happening up over here. You got the high volume down, spring, but they're all closing well off their highs. The result of that is boom. It's gapped right past there. It's really moving erratically. I think that looks like distribution up the top there, and I don't really like it. But I'd be looking to see if it can make a higher low now to this, and see if it's we get one of these and a confirmation bar like that around this area, then that would be good. But anyway, that's RRL.